As one of America's transportation hubs, the Chicagoland area has seen many unique pieces of railroad equipment. One such example is the EMD F40C. This six-axle brute hauled passengers on Milwaukee District commuter lines from the 1970s all the way up to the 2010s, when they were occasionally called back into service. Most today have been scrapped, and only 2 remain on Metra's roster, awaiting an uncertain future. What was the history of this locomotive, and what made it unique? In the early 1970s, the Milwaukee Road was on the verge of bankruptcy. This was reflected in the poor quality of its tracks and its outdated, run-down rolling stock. Their commuter equipment was no different. F&E units, far past their prime, made up the backbone of the Milwaukee Road Chicago commuter fleet. Needing an upgrade, 2 local transit agencies, the Northwest Suburban Mass Transit District and the North Suburban Mass Transit District, financed the purchase of 15 F40Cs in 1973. Built by EMD between March and May of 1974, the F40C contained a 16-645 E3 prime mover that produced 3,200 horsepower. The locomotive created a healthy 92,000 pounds of starting tractive effort and 82,000 pounds of continuous tractive effort at 6.6 miles per hour. A head-end power unit, or HEP, was used to supply electricity to the train. Riding on an SD40-2 frame, the F40C measured 68 feet 10 inches long and weighed 364,000 pounds. Other features included marker lights for push-pull operation, a cab-mounted gyro light, and a Leslie RS3L horn. Here's an example. One of the most striking features of the F40C was its stainless steel body panels. Designed purely for aesthetic reasons, Northwest Suburban Mass Transit District President Herb Hansen wanted the locomotives to resemble the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy EMD E5 he owned. Clearly, the F40C looked nothing like the classic E unit, but the panels did give the locomotive a distinctive look. Externally, the F40C looked similar to its cousin, the EMD SDP-40F, but the 2 units varied in significant ways. Unlike the F40C, the SDP-40F contained a steam generator to power its cars, as Amtrak had inherited a large fleet of antiquated passenger equipment. This meant that the SDP-40F had to ride on a larger FP-45 frame. These differences led to the rough ride quality and instability of the SDP-40F, pitfalls that the F40C avoided. First arriving in the spring of 1974, the first 13 F40Cs, numbered 40 through 52, were built for the Northwest Suburban Mass Transit District, while the final 2 F40Cs, numbered 53 and 54, were built for the North Suburban Mass Transit District. This was denoted by the logos and plaques adorning the locomotives. About a year later, the units were released to the Regional Transportation Authority and were given Milwaukee Road reporting marks, as well as Milwaukee Road heralds. After the Milwaukee Road went bankrupt, the units were handed over to the Northeast Illinois Commuter Railroad Corporation in 1983. In 1984, Metra was formed, and in 1985, the Burley F40Cs received new paint and were renumbered 600 through 614. Through the rest of the 1980s and 1990s, the F40Cs operated exclusively on Metra's Milwaukee District West and North lines. Over this period, upgrades such as roof-mounted air conditioners, ditch lights, and Nathan P5A horns were added. Here's an example. By the 2000s, however, the locomotive's age and limitations were becoming increasingly apparent. The F40Cs were nearing 30 years in service and weighed over 100,000 pounds more, and measured over 10 feet longer than Metra's massive fleet of F40PHs. The decision was made to replace the F40Cs, and between 2003 and 2004, the locomotives were phased out by new MPI MP36PH locomotives. 13 F40Cs were sold for scrap, and only 611 and 614 were retained in case of power shortages. These locomotives were put back into service between 2009 and 2012 as Metra began rebuilding their F40PHs. Since then, 611 and 614 have remained in Metra's Western Avenue yard. While Metra attempted to find a contractor to rebuild them, no suitable bidder was found, and the two powerhouses have remained in storage. While it is unlikely that these two F40Cs will haul commuters again, the fact that these units remain is great for rail fans. They are a physical link to the days of the Milwaukee Road and are a unique part of Chicago's railroad history.